The twin suns of Epsilon 9 cast long shadows across the diplomatic outpost's reinforced glass windows. Ambassador Mara Wells stood at the edge of the council chamber, watching as the crimson sand dunes shifted in the distance. 15 years of delicate negotiations between humans and the Quaria had led to this moment, the signing of a resource-sharing treaty that would ensure peace for generations to come. Commander Thana Rahl adjusted her stance, maintaining the precisely calculated 2-meter distance from Mara that protocol dictated. Her golden honor sigil gleamed on her armor, catching the harsh light. As the ambassador's assigned protector, she had spent the past 8 months shadowing the humans' every move, analyzing potential threats, and maintaining constant vigilance. The Quaria High Command had been explicit. Ambassador Wells represented the fragile hope for lasting peace, and her safety was paramount, at all costs. "Your expression suggests concern, Commander," Mara said without turning. Her voice carried the practiced evenness of a career diplomat. Thana's 4-fingered hand instinctively moved to the energy weapon at her hip. "The security parameters for today's ceremony have been triple-checked, Ambassador. But I would recommend moving away from the window. Your silhouette presents an unnecessary targeting opportunity." A slight smile crossed Mara's face as she turned to face her guardian. "Always the tactician. Very well." She moved toward the circular negotiation table, where her aides were arranging the final treaty documents. "Tell me, Commander, in your professional assessment, how many of the delegates present today actively hope these negotiations fail?" Thana's silver eyes narrowed, scanning the room where Quaria dignitaries mingled with human corporate representatives. 3, possibly 4. Envoy Talus has been particularly resistant to compromise. Indeed. Mara straightened her formal diplomatic uniform, a blend of Earth-Navy tradition and concessions to Quaria aesthetic sensibilities. His corporate backers stand to lose considerable mining rights if our resource-sharing provisions are ratified. The chamber's ambient hum of conversation gradually intensified as more delegates arrived. Lieutenant Jaren, Thana's tactical advisor, approached with a datapad. "Commander, security sweeps are complete," he reported, his scaled features impassive. "Dr. Selkiro requests confirmation of the ambassador's biometric monitors for the duration of the ceremony." Dr. Selkiro, the embassy's science attaché, nodded from across the room where she was calibrating the holographic displays for the treaty presentation. Her specialized knowledge of both human and Quaria physiology had proven invaluable throughout the negotiations, especially when tensions ran high. Mara waved away the concern. "Please inform the good doctor that I won't be needing monitoring during the ceremony. This isn't my first high-stakes signing." Thana interjected. "Protocol suggests—" "I am aware of protocol, Commander," Mara said, her tone gentle but firm. "But sometimes diplomacy requires a human touch unencumbered by technology." Before Thana could respond, the chamber's main doors parted to admit Envoy Talus. The corporate representative moved with the confident stride of someone accustomed to wealth and influence. His ceremonial robes, though conforming to Quaria tradition, bore subtle emblems of the mining conglomerate he represented. "Ambassador Wells," he called, approaching with arms extended in the traditional Quaria greeting. "Today marks a historic occasion, does it not?" Mara reciprocated the gesture, though Thana noted the slight tension in her shoulders. "Indeed it does, Envoy. Though I recall your opposition to no fewer than 7 key provisions just last week." Talus's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among his kind. "The robust exchange of perspectives strengthens any agreement. Ambassador, my principals have adjusted their expectations." Thana maintained her position slightly behind Mara, analyzing Talus's body language. Something felt wrong, a subtle dissonance in his movements, perhaps, or the too casual way his attendants dispersed throughout the chamber. Lieutenant Jaron caught her eye from across the room, a silent confirmation that he sensed it too. As the delegates took their positions around the negotiation table, Dr. Kiro activated the holographic display. The treaty's text shimmered in the air, rotating slowly for all to examine. Mara stepped forward to deliver her opening remarks. Distinguished representatives of Quaria and Earth, 15 years ago, our peoples faced the prospect of resource wars that would have devastated both our worlds. Today, we stand at the threshold of a new era. The reinforced window behind the ambassador exploded inward. Thena's training activated instantly. 3 seconds before the embassy's alarms began wailing. She was already moving to extract Mara from the danger zone. Energy blasts tore through the chamber, sending delegates diving for cover. In the initial chaos, Thena registered multiple armed figures rappelling through the shattered window. Mercenaries in modified combat gear. "Ambassador, we must evacuate immediately," Thena commanded, reaching for Mara's arm. But the human diplomat was no longer where she had been standing. To Thena's astonishment, Mara had already dropped beneath the negotiation table, rolling to a defensive position. More shocking still, the ambassador had produced a compact sidearm from beneath her diplomatic jacket and was returning fire with calm precision. "Commander," Mara called out, "secure the civilian delegates first. I've got this position covered." Thena froze momentarily, her training warring with the unexpected sight. Ambassador Wells, the diplomat she had been assigned to protect, was demonstrating combat proficiency that rivaled seasoned security personnel. The human fired 3 rapid shots, forcing one of the attackers to seek cover. "That was not a suggestion, Commander," Mara added, her voice steady despite the chaos. Thena shook off her surprise and moved to direct panicked delegates toward the emergency exits. Lieutenant Jaron had already taken up a defensive position near one doorway, covering the retreat of several Quaria officials. "Status report," Thena demanded through her comm unit. "Perimeter breach in 3 locations," Jaron responded. "Communications are being jammed. Automated defense systems are unresponsive. Possible EMP deployment." Across the chamber, Dr. Kiro was huddled behind a toppled display console with 2 human aides. The science attaché appeared to be working frantically on a portable device, despite the ongoing firefight. "Dr. Kiro," Mara called out, "can you restore communications from your terminal?" "Working on it, Ambassador," the doctor replied. "But these aren't random insurgents. They've used a targeted system override. Someone gave them our security protocols." Thena dispatched 2 security officers to escort more delegates to safety, all while trying to maneuver back toward Mara. Her primary mission, the ambassador's safety, remained paramount. Yet the human continued to demonstrate unexpected battlefield awareness, directing both human and Quaria staff into defensive formations with the authority of a veteran commander. "Envoy Talus is missing," Lieutenant Jaron reported, scanning the room. Mara nodded grimly. "Not missing, Lieutenant. This has his corporate backers written all over it. They'd rather sabotage peace than compromise on mining rights." Another barrage of energy fire forced them all lower to the ground. The attackers were advancing methodically, using portable shield generators to push deeper into the chamber. Thena counted at least 12 heavily armed mercenaries, a professional strike team, not random terrorists. "Ambassador, I must insist we evacuate you now," Thena urged, finally reaching Mara's position. "My orders are explicit." Mara met her gaze, and Thena was struck by the calm resolve in the human's eyes. "Commander, if we abandon this embassy now, the treaty dies with it. These mercenaries aren't here to take hostages. They're here to destroy 15 years of work and restart a resource war that will benefit their corporate masters." "My duty is to protect you, not the treaty," Thena insisted. "Then help me protect both." Mara gestured toward Dr. Kiro. "The doctor has found a way to bypass the communication blackout, but she needs to reach the auxiliary control room 2 levels down. We need to clear a path. Thena's training screamed against this course of action. Protocol demanded immediate extraction of the high-value asset, the ambassador, regardless of other considerations. Yet something in Mara's determined expression gave her pause. We stand a better chance together, Commander, Mara added, checking her weapons charge. And I'm clearly not the helpless diplomat you were expecting to protect. Before Thena could respond, the chamber's emergency lighting flickered, plunging them momentarily into darkness. When the backup systems engaged, casting everything in a red glow, Mara was already moving, crawling toward an overturned section of the negotiation table that could provide better cover. Dr. Kiro, Lieutenant Jaren, to me, Mara called out. Bring anyone who can assist with communications. To Thena's amazement, the embassy staff responded to the ambassador's commands without hesitation. The science attaché hurried over with her equipment, accompanied by 2 Quaria technicians. Lieutenant Jaren provided covering fire, his precise shots forcing the mercenaries to halt their advance temporarily. The embassy's automated turrets should still be operational if we can bypass the EMP effects, Dr. Kiro explained, connecting various components from her kit. But I'll need access to the mainframe junction on the lower level. Mara nodded, then turned to address the small group of survivors who had gathered around their position. I need volunteers to create a diversion while we get Dr. Kiro to the control room. Several hands raised without hesitation, both human and Quaria staff members, willing to follow the ambassador's lead. Thena watched in growing disbelief as Mara quickly organized them into teams, assigning makeshift weapons fashioned from broken furniture and disabled holographic projectors. Ambassador, Thena said quietly, you demonstrate unusual tactical knowledge for a diplomat. A ghost of a smile crossed Mara's face. I wasn't always a diplomat, Commander. Before I negotiated peace treaties, I helped ensure there were people left alive to sign them. She checked her sidearm again. Now, are you with us, or are you still planning to drag me to an evacuation shuttle against my will? Thena felt something shift inside her, a recalibration of her understanding of this human she had been assigned to protect. For 8 months, she had viewed Ambassador Wells as a vulnerable asset, someone whose value lay in her diplomatic skills, but who required constant protection from physical threats. Now, watching Mara calmly direct a counteroffensive with the precision of a seasoned tactician, Thena was forced to reconsider. I am with you, Ambassador, she decided, adjusting her weapon settings. But my primary duty remains your safety. Fair enough, Mara nodded to Dr. Kiro. Ready the diversion. We move in 30 seconds. What followed was unlike any operation Thena had participated in before. The ambassador's improvised defense strategy proved remarkably effective. While one team of volunteers created a distraction by overloading power cells from damaged equipment, causing bright flashes and smoke near the main entrance, Mara led their small group toward a service corridor that would take them to the lower levels. Thena found herself automatically falling into formation alongside Mara, the two of them advancing with a synchronized efficiency that felt almost practiced. The ambassador moved with the fluid economy of someone intimately familiar with combat situations, checking corners and maintaining awareness of their surroundings in a manner that no civilian should possess. 3 hostiles approaching from the east corridor, Lieutenant Jaren warned as they reached a junction. Mara immediately signaled for the group to take cover, then glanced at Thena. Without words, a plan formed between them. Thena nodded once, then moved to a position where she could engage the approaching mercenaries. Mara took up a complementary position, giving them crossfire capability. When the attackers rounded the corner, they were met with precisely coordinated fire that left them no chance to respond. As the echoes of the brief engagement faded, Thena found herself exchanging a look of mutual respect with the ambassador. We should continue moving, Mara said, already checking the next corridor. The EMP effects will be wearing off soon, and they'll be bringing in heavier equipment. They encountered sporadic resistance as they made their way deeper into the embassy complex. Each time, Mara demonstrated combat prowess that belied her diplomatic title. She anticipated enemy movements, created effective choke points using the embassy's architecture, and even jury-rigged several fallen mercenary weapons to create improvised traps. "Where did you learn these techniques?" Thena finally asked, as they paused to allow Dr. Kiro to bypass a sealed door. "Special Diplomatic Security Detail, Earth Expeditionary Force," Mara replied, her eyes never ceasing their vigilant scan of their surroundings. 12 years in active combat zones before I transferred to the Diplomatic Corps. The transition made sense. I'd seen enough of war to be motivated to prevent it. The door slid open with a hydraulic hiss, revealing the auxiliary control center. Dr. Kiro immediately moved to the central console, connecting her equipment with practiced efficiency. "I'll need 5 minutes to restore communications and bypass the security lockouts," she announced, fingers flying across the interface. "You have 2, Mara responded, taking up a defensive position near the entrance. "Lieutenant, help the doctor. Commander Thena and I will secure the perimeter." As they moved to check adjacent corridors, Thena found herself reassessing not just the ambassador, but her own understanding of protection. Her training had always emphasized removing the protected individual from danger. Yet, here they were, deliberately moving deeper into a conflict zone, guided by Mara's strategic decisions. "You're troubled, Commander," Mara observed quietly as they secured a maintenance accessway. "Your actions contradict my understanding of civilian behavior," Thena admitted. "And my orders." Mara checked a sensor readout on the wall panel before responding. "Sometimes, protection requires more than evacuation. These attackers aren't just targeting me. They're trying to destroy the peace process itself. If we simply flee, they win." A distant explosion rocked the building, sending vibrations through the floor beneath them. Mara's expression hardened. "That came from the embassy's lower levels," she said. "The power core." Thena's internal alarms intensified. If they damage the fusion reactors, the entire complex could be destroyed, Mara finished. "Along with all evidence of corporate involvement in this attack." She activated her comm unit. "Dr. Kiro, what's your status?" "Communications partially restored," came the response. "I've managed to send an emergency signal to Quaria Security Command, but internal systems are still compromised. Lieutenant Jaren, stay with the doctor and continue working on restoring defensive systems," Mara ordered. "Commander Thena and I will investigate the power core breach." Thena wanted to object. Moving toward an explosion rather than away from it violated every protection protocol. But she found herself following Mara nonetheless. The ambassador's certainty was compelling, and Thena was beginning to trust her tactical judgment. They descended through emergency stairwells, encountering signs of combat along the way. Bodies of embassy security personnel lay alongside fallen mercenaries, evidence of fierce resistance throughout the complex. "These attackers are well-trained," Thena observed, examining their equipment. "Military-grade weapons, tactical formations. These aren't common insurgents." Mara knelt beside one of the fallen mercenaries, examining a distinctive insignia on their armor. "These are augmented Quaria soldiers, elite units modified with combat enhancements. Only the wealthiest corporations could afford to hire them." Thena felt a cold realization settle over her. "They're my people. They're mercenaries who happen to be Quaria," Mara corrected firmly. "Just as there are human mercenaries who sell their services to the highest bidder, their choices don't reflect on you or your people." The ambassador's words offered unexpected comfort. But before Thena could respond, her enhanced hearing detected movement ahead. She signaled for silence, then pointed toward the corridor leading to the power core chamber. Mara nodded, understanding immediately. They advanced with practiced caution, weapons ready. The corridor showed increasing signs of damage, scorched walls, exposed circuitry, emergency containment field struggling to maintain integrity. As they approached the main power core chamber, voices became audible. Thena recognized one immediately, Envoy Talus, his tone commanding and impatient. "I don't care about your timeline. The reactor must be compromised completely. Nothing can remain of the treaty or the negotiations." A deeper voice responded, one that sent a chill through Thena's spine. "The overload sequence is already initiated, Envoy. But my team reports resistance throughout the complex. The ambassador and her security detail are proving resilient." "Then find them and eliminate them," Talus snapped. "Your payment depends on complete destruction of all evidence." Mara caught Thena's eye, communicating a silent question. Thena indicated 3 additional heat signatures in the chamber, beyond Talus and his mercenary captain. Mara nodded, then sketched a quick tactical plan in the air between them. Thena hesitated. The plan was bold, perhaps too bold. It would place Mara directly in the line of fire, contradicting Thena's primary directive, to protect the ambassador. Yet she found herself agreeing nonetheless, trusting both Mara's combat experience and her own growing conviction that true protection might require standing alongside rather than extracting. They moved simultaneously, Thena bursting through the left entrance, while Mara flanked from the right. The element of surprise gave them a critical advantage in the first few seconds, allowing them to neutralize 2 of the mercenaries before the others could respond. "Envoy Talus," Mara called out, her weapon trained steadily on the corporate representative. "Sabotaging peace negotiations and attacking diplomatic personnel violates 17 different statutes under the Joint Governance Accord." Talus's expression shifted from shock to calculated composure. "Ambassador Wells, how unexpected to find you still alive, and so far from your evacuation shuttle." "Step away from the reactor controls," Mara demanded. The mercenary captain, a towering Quaria warrior with visible cybernetic enhancements glinting beneath his armor, moved to place himself between Talus and the ambassador. "This facility is already lost, human. The overload sequence cannot be stopped." Thena assessed their tactical situation rapidly. The power core chamber was a vast industrial space dominated by the pulsing heart of the embassy's fusion reactor. Coolant pipes and power conduits created a labyrinth of potential cover and choke points. The reactor itself was emitting warning signals, its containment field fluctuating ominously. "Commander," Mara said without taking her eyes off Talus, "what would happen if we rerouted power from the secondary coolant systems to create a localized overload?" Thena understood immediately. "It would create a controlled explosion, enough to collapse this section of the facility while potentially preserving the rest of the embassy. And all the evidence of corporate involvement," Mara added meaningfully. Talus's mandibles clicked in agitation. "You wouldn't dare! You'd die in the collapse as well." "Perhaps," Mara acknowledged. "But the treaty data has already been transmitted to Quaria Security Command, along with footage of this attack. Your corporate masters will face justice, even if we don't survive to witness it." The mercenary captain growled something in a Quaria dialect too specialized for the translation systems to interpret, then lunged toward Mara with inhuman speed, his augmentations giving him unnatural velocity. Thena moved to intercept, but a barrage of fire from the remaining mercenary forced her to take cover behind a coolant conduit. She watched in horror as the captain closed on Mara, certain the human diplomat would be overwhelmed by the augmented warrior. Instead, Mara sidestepped the charge with practiced precision, using the captain's momentum against him. As he stumbled past, she delivered a precise strike to a vulnerable connection point in his cybernetic enhancements, a weakness only someone intimately familiar with Quaria augmentation technology would know to exploit. The captain roared in pain and outrage, his left arm temporarily disabled by the strike. He whirled to face Mara again, drawing a vibrating blade from his armor. "Commander, the controls!" Mara called out, engaging the captain in close combat. Thena understood instantly. While Mara kept the captain occupied, she needed to reach the reactor controls and implement their plan. She fired a covering burst toward the remaining mercenary, then dove across an exposed section of flooring toward the control console. Energy blasts scorched the metal where she had been moments before, but Thena reached the console intact. Her fingers flew across the interface, accessing the reactor's subsystems. Years of technical training allowed her to quickly identify the critical pathways needed to create the controlled overload Mara had suggested. Across the chamber, the ambassador was holding her own against the augmented captain, a feat Thena would have considered impossible hours earlier. Mara fought with a fluid combination of Earth combat techniques and adaptations clearly designed to counter Quaria physiology. She wasn't merely surviving. She was methodically maneuvering the captain toward an area where the floor plates had been weakened by earlier explosions. Envoy Talus, seeing the tide turning against him, attempted to flee toward a maintenance accessway. Thena tracked his movement without interrupting her work on the reactor controls. "Ambassador, the envoy is escaping." "Let him run," Mara replied, ducking beneath a vicious swing of the captain's blade. "He won't get far once communications are fully restored." The remaining mercenary, realizing what Thena was attempting at the control console, concentrated his fire on her position. Energy blasts superheated the metal around her, making it increasingly difficult to maintain her position. "Status, Commander," Mara called out, her voice tight with exertion as she continued to engage the captain. 30 seconds to initiate the controlled overload," Thena responded. "But we'll have less than 2 minutes to evacuate before the collapse." "Understood." What happened next occurred so quickly that Thena barely had time to register the sequence of events. Mara feinted left, then delivered a powerful strike to the captain's knee joint. As he stumbled, she grabbed a loose power coupling from the damaged flooring and jammed it into his primary cybernetic control node. The captain convulsed as electrical feedback surged through his augmentations, temporarily paralyzing his enhanced systems. In the same fluid motion, Mara drew her sidearm and fired 3 precise shots at the mercenary targeting Thena. The first 2 shots depleted his personal shield. The third found a gap in his armor, sending him crashing to the floor. "Now, Commander!" Mara shouted, already moving toward the exit. Thena completed the sequence, initiating the controlled overload. Warning klaxons immediately began sounding throughout the chamber, emergency lighting shifting to a pulsing red that bathed everything in crimson. "Reactor containment breach imminent," announced the automated system. "All personnel evacuate immediately. 90 seconds to structural collapse." The mercenary captain, struggling against his malfunctioning enhancements, snarled at them from the floor. "This changes nothing. The treaty will never be implemented. My employers have contingencies." "Save it for the tribunal," Mara interrupted, retrieving a data core from the central console. "This contains the unaltered security logs from the embassy system. Your employer's involvement is now documented." Thena and Mara raced for the exit, the countdown to collapse urging them forward. They navigated the labyrinthine corridors of the lower levels, the structure around them already beginning to groan as power surges stressed the architectural supports. "Dr. Kiro, Lieutenant Jaren, evacuate immediately," Thena ordered through her restored comlink. "Reactor collapse in 60 seconds. "Acknowledged," came Jaren's response. "We've restored communications and security systems. Quaria reinforcements are already securing the upper levels." They reached a junction where the corridor split into 3 separate paths. Mara hesitated, clearly calculating their best escape route. "This way," Thena directed, taking the lead for the first time since the attack began. "Maintenance shaft will take us directly to the surface level." They climbed through increasingly unstable sections of the embassy, the structure shuddering around them as the reactor overload cascaded through connected systems. Several times, Thena had to physically support sections of collapsing ceiling to allow Mara to pass safely. "Leave me if necessary, Commander." Mara gasped during one particularly precarious moment. The data core is what matters. Not an option, Ambassador, Thena replied firmly. With a final surge of strength, she pushed through the weakened barrier, clearing their path forward. They emerged onto the embassy's main level, just as the first significant structural collapse occurred below them. The floor beneath their feet trembled, but held. Through shattered windows, Thena could see Quaria security forces establishing a perimeter around the compound. Evacuation shuttles landing to retrieve survivors. "We made it," Mara said, her voice reflecting disbelief and exhaustion in equal measure. Lieutenant Duran appeared from an adjacent corridor, relief evident in his posture. "Commander Thena, Ambassador, we feared you were lost in the collapse." "Nearly were," Mara acknowledged, handing him the data core. "Ensure this reaches Quaria Security Command immediately. It contains evidence of corporate involvement in the attack." Dr. Kiro approached, already scanning both of them with medical equipment. "You require immediate treatment, Ambassador. Multiple lacerations, second-degree burns, possible concussion." "Later, Doctor," Mara waved away the concern. "Status report first. Casualties?" 17 confirmed, Jaren reported grimly. 12 embassy personnel, 5 attackers. Envoy Talus was captured attempting to reach a private shuttle. The mercenary captain and 2 others remain unaccounted for, presumed lost in the lower-level collapse. Mara's expression darkened at the casualty count, but she nodded resolutely. "Ensure the wounded receive priority evacuation, and locate any surviving delegates. We have a treaty to complete." Thena stared at the human diplomat in astonishment. "Ambassador, surely the ceremony must be postponed after such an attack." "On the contrary, Commander," Mara replied, straightening her torn and bloodied diplomatic uniform with dignity. "Completing this treaty now, in the face of those who would destroy it, sends the strongest possible message." She met Thena's gaze directly. "Peace isn't found in the absence of violence, but in our determination to move forward despite it." The next 14 days passed in a blur of activity. The damaged embassy was deemed structurally unsafe, necessitating relocation of all diplomatic functions to Quaria's capital city. Security was heightened to unprecedented levels, with Thena personally overseeing the protection arrangements. The evidence recovered from the embassy's data core proved damning. 3 major mining corporations were implicated in financing the attack, with Envoy Talus serving as their agent. The mercenary captain, who had indeed survived the collapse, was captured attempting to flee the planet. His testimony, offered in exchange for leniency, further cemented the case against the corporate conspirators. Throughout it all, Ambassador Mara Wells demonstrated the same resolute leadership that had surfaced during the attack. She refused to allow the peace process to falter, working tirelessly to reassure nervous delegates and maintain momentum toward the treaty's completion. Thena found herself assigned to continue as Mara's primary security officer, though the nature of their relationship had fundamentally changed. No longer did she view the ambassador as merely an asset to be protected. They had become partners, each respecting the other's unique capabilities and perspectives. On the 14th day following the attack, Mara stood before the Quaria High Council to deliver the finalized treaty. Thena maintained her position nearby, watchful as ever, but now understanding that her duty encompassed more than physical protection. "Distinguished representatives of Quaria and Earth," Mara began, her voice carrying the weight of recent events, yet remaining unwavering. 2 weeks ago, those who profit from conflict attempted to prevent this historic agreement. They believed that by destroying the embassy, and those within it, they could maintain the status quo of exploitation and inevitable conflict. She paused, her gaze sweeping across the assembled delegates. They failed, not simply because their attack was repelled, but because they fundamentally misunderstood what creates lasting peace. It is not documents or buildings that secure our future. It is the commitment of individuals willing to stand against violence and greed, even at great personal risk. Thena found herself nodding slightly, recognizing the truth in Mara's words. The treaty before you today is unchanged in its substance from what we intended to sign 2 weeks ago, Mara continued. But its meaning has been forged anew in the crucible of that attack. Each provision now carries the weight of those who gave their lives to see this moment realized. The signing ceremony proceeded with solemn dignity. When it concluded, a wave of restrained applause swept through the council chamber, not celebratory, but acknowledging the significance of what had been accomplished despite tremendous opposition. As the formal proceedings concluded, Thena approached Mara, who stood alone on a balcony overlooking the Quaria capital. The twin suns were setting, bathing the cityscape in amber light. "The Quaria High Command has offered me a new assignment," Thena said without preamble. Mara turned, curiosity evident in her expression. "Oh, something suitably challenging, I hope." "They have created a position for me on the Joint Security Council," Thena explained. "Advisory capacity for future diplomatic missions. It seems our experience has prompted a re-evaluation of traditional protection protocols." A smile touched Mara's lips. "About time. The old model wasn't particularly effective, was it?" "It was based on incomplete assumptions," Thena acknowledged. "That protection meant removal from danger, rather than partnership in facing it." She hesitated, then added, "I have requested to remain assigned to your security detail, Ambassador, regardless of my new advisory role." Mara's expression softened. "I'd welcome that, Commander. Though I hope our future collaborations involve fewer explosions and collapsing buildings." "As do I." Thena moved to stand beside Mara at the balcony railing, observing the city below. After a moment of companionable silence, she asked the question that had lingered in her mind since the attack. "Why did you not tell me of your combat background when I was first assigned to you?" Mara considered the question before answering. "Would you have believed me? Or would you have dismissed it as a civilian's exaggeration of limited training?" She shook her head slightly. "Sometimes, capabilities are best demonstrated, rather than declared." "I would have adjusted my protection strategies accordingly," Thena insisted. "Perhaps. Or perhaps you would have continued seeing me primarily as an asset to be secured, rather than a partner to be trusted." Mara turned to face her fully. "Thank you. By the way." "For what, Ambassador?" "For choosing to stand with me rather than evacuate me against my will. I know that decision violated your orders and your training." Thena felt an unfamiliar warmth at the acknowledgement. "It was the correct tactical decision given the circumstances." "It was more than that," Mara said quietly. "It was recognition of my autonomy, my right to choose the risks I would take in service of something greater than my individual safety." The final rays of the setting suns caught the golden honor sigil on Thena's armor, making it gleam briefly, impulsively. She unclasped it and extended it toward Mara. "This represents the Quaria Code of Unity and Respect," she explained. "Traditionally exchanged only between warriors who have faced death together." Mara accepted the token with evident emotion. In return, she removed a small ceremonial blade from her diplomatic uniform, an item Thena had noted, but never questioned. "On Earth, this represents the balance between strength and wisdom," Mara said, offering it to Thena. "A reminder that true protection requires both." As they exchanged these symbols of their respective cultures, Thena felt a profound shift in her understanding of duty. Protection was not merely the preservation of life. It was the defense of dignity, autonomy, and the right to stand for one's beliefs, even at great personal risk. The twin suns disappeared below the horizon, leaving the sky painted in deepening purples and blues. In the distance, the lights of the Quaria capital began to illuminate, a constellation of civilization against the gathering darkness. "What happens next, Ambassador?" Thena asked. Mara contemplated the horizon thoughtfully. "Implementation of the treaty will take years. There will be resistance, setbacks, attempts to undermine what we've built. A determined smile crossed her face. But we've shown that peace has defenders just as fierce as any warriors. Indeed we have, Thena agreed, feeling a new certainty in her purpose. Her duty had evolved beyond mere protection of a diplomatic asset. It had become a commitment to stand alongside someone she now considered both colleague and friend in defense of something far more precious than individual safety. As the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, they remained side by side, the human diplomat and her Quaria guardian, their silhouettes merging into a single, resolute figure against the twilight, a living symbol of the partnership they had forged in crisis and would continue to build in peace.